Hello guys, it's Melissa and welcome to another video where today I am actually recreating a real life house. I don't think I've done this before. The closest I've probably come is when the Paranormal Pack came out and I decided to build a home that was inspired by New Orleans kind of interior design. And because that's not something that I'm particularly familiar with in terms of design style, I was basically looking at Pinterest pictures and following them quite closely because, I didn't want to, I did want to have that kind of inspiration, and I didn't really, New Orleans style wasn't something I could kind of do from memory. So I was roughly recreating the pictures I saw, but not exactly. But this is actually like my first ever recreation of a real life house, all the rooms and floor plan and everything like that. So it's not my house, unfortunately, because I really, really love this real life house, and I will be posting pictures throughout just so you can kind of see the references that I was working with. But this is actually based on a house that I saw on a TV show. So if you live in the UK like I do, on BBC One at the moment, there is a show called Your Home Made Perfect. It's actually season 2, and I have not seen season 1, but I've really been enjoying this season. And basically the idea is that people who have kind of problematic homes that they don't particularly like will go on the show. So a lot of them perhaps have like weird floor plans and the rooms are all quite sort of disjointed and separated from each other, and the windows aren't placed very well and it's really, really dark and just things like that. So they go on the show and basically 2 architects compete to essentially redesign their home. And the kind of draw of the show is that they use virtual reality to kind of show what their house could look like. So basically it's quite cool. They put on these goggles and then essentially just before their eyes, they can see how the floor plan changes. Sometimes they even change where the stairs go, and they add in windows and, knock down extensions and just things like that. So they completely change it up, and it's like a really great way to kind of demonstrate how a house can change. So yeah, essentially there's 2 architects on the show and they basically compete to do the kind of winning design. And then after, they've shown their designs, the homeowners will essentially choose one. And then it's up to them to kind of hire the builders and carry out the work. And then at the end, you see what they've done with their house. And basically, this is the house that was shown on the first episode. So one of the architects is a guy called... Is it Richard? Oh my God. I think it is. Oh my God, probably. But yeah, his designs are usually a little bit more out there, and I've seen the first 5 episodes of this season, and actually his design was only picked once, and it was in this first episode. So yeah, he's like I say, he's a little bit out there, and also his homes always contain 2 things, and that is a bench seat and a wood burner stove. But that's a little bit beside the point. But yeah, his design was chosen for the first episode, and I was just so impressed with how the owners, because they might take the structure of the existing house, but it's up to them to do the interior design and things like that. So the design that they picked was like right up my street. It's like exactly the kind of thing that I like, it's my kind of style. Robert, that's his name. Did I say Richard? Anyway, it's Robert. So yeah, this was his kind of winning design and I loved it, and I knew as soon as I saw it that I wanted to recreate it. So one of the big challenges of this kind of redesign in real life, because often, they'll have certain budgets and certain kind of constraints. But with this particular build, they had planning permission to extend their house at the back. But I didn't really understand it, but there was basically a rule of 45. So it meant that they could extend their house, but their owners had to have still maintain a 45 degree angle of view, so that the house, like the extension, couldn't block the view from their back garden, basically, at a 45-degree angle. So they couldn't make, for example, like a traditional rectangle conservatory. So this was essentially, the winning design, and it was based on the concept of 45-degree angles, which I found really interesting. So throughout the build, there's lots of diagonal walls and different kind of floor levels as well to keep it interesting, all based on the idea of angles and 45 degrees and things like that. Which is really cool, but also is a huge challenge, because it meant that in this particular build that I'm doing here, I had to use a lot of platforms and diagonal walls, which if you build in The Sims, but you know that both of those things can cause, some troubles, especially platforms. They're still relatively new and they do definitely have their own issues. So that was a challenge. But I am so happy with how this turned out. Like I said, I love the house in real life, and I love this recreation as well. It was definitely a challenge. My first one. I probably wouldn't do it too often again, but it's definitely really fun. And I did try to stay as close as possible to the original design. I do use custom content in this build because there were just some things that I couldn't really represent with what we had in the game. But I also did allow myself to take some creative liberties here and there, and the exterior is most evident of that. So it's really funny, and I do think about this sometimes. So when I build in The Sims, and I know it's not just me, it's basically everyone, the exterior can be really fun to do with all the landscaping and, the floor plan, the different structures, how that looks outside, the roofing, things like that. And I don't know what it's like wherever you live, but especially where I live in the UK, houses are really, really boring from the outside. So my house, for example, is really, really long and narrow. So when you're looking like front on at my house, it is literally two little windows on like a kind of narrow wall, and there's like no decoration. I mean, we've got a little bit of a front garden, but the tiniest amount. And like most houses are just really boring. They're essentially just big brick like houses with like a few windows, a plain door, and that's about it. They don't look very fancy. They don't have loads of like really nice landscaping. But when it comes to The Sims, anything like that just always ends up looking really like boring and unfinished. So I always like try and go all out with that kind of stuff. But yeah, sometimes I do think like in real life, I rarely ever see houses that are as fancy as the ones that I build. So yeah, I think real life houses are a lot more boring than Sims houses. But yeah, so I will put the picture up, but basically the front of the house, you don't see so much of it because the focus of the show is the kind of interior. But it is essentially quite boring. It's very green. As you can see, the green is really starting to take shape in this home now. So it's really green, and even on the outside as well. The house outside is green. So yeah, it's essentially just that with a few windows at the front, and I didn't want to add in windows where there aren't in the actual house because I thought that could kind of make it more difficult to furnish if I've put windows in where they shouldn't be. So instead, I just decided to, as I say, take a few liberties and add in a few kind of plants and things that weren't already there. And then also the idea of the extension was that they wanted to look out into their garden. But basically I found, because of all the diagonals, I found kind of recreating the portions of the house to be really difficult. So essentially once I nailed down the floor plan of the house, which you would have seen earlier, was a little bit of a struggle. I even cut out sometimes because it did take me a long time and I thought that's not so interesting to watch. But yeah, it was a real struggle to do the floor plan. And once I got it done, there wasn't enough room to put the garden at the end of the house. So as you can see, I've put it to the side of the house. So that's not quite accurate, but I mean, hey ho. And also in the show, you don't see the garden. So again, I've just kind of imagined it, but they were quite garden-y people. So I wanted to make it a gardener's garden. So I put a few kind of planters and also kind of decorations like the watering can and things like that. So yeah, you can see the green is quite prevalent. And I think that's really cool. Like, I think a lot of people are kind of scared of doing those bold colors. And they even, I mean, you can't paint ceilings in The Sims, but they actually painted their ceiling green as well, and it looked really, really cool. I think the way that they did it was really clever, and green wasn't actually in Robert's original sort of architectural design. That was all the homeowner's like artistic decision, and I think it looks really, really cool. And I personally, just in my kind of design here in The Sims, I did also add in some yellow as well for just a bit of variation, and also I thought it kind of complemented it quite well. And one area that I didn't necessarily recreate because number one, I couldn't, and number two, it was probably my least favorite part of the design of the real house, and that is that as I said, the architect Robert, he always uses bench seats in his builds. So the sofa there, you can see that's a custom content yellow sofa. I basically just put the pieces together so they would wrap around the diagonal walls. But really that was actually a sofa, like a bench sofa that then leads directly onto the steps to the bedroom that you can see taking place here, which, by the way, is not just me being lazy. That was genuinely just the most simple room in the house, just basically the bed and the wardrobe on a platform with like a little curtain to separate it from the rest of the build. So that's what I kept it as. But yeah, they had a bench seat, and underneath the bench seat sofa was a bath. So you could essentially take a bath in your living room right next to the kitchen. And I found that really strange, and that was in the original like architectural design, and they kept it. I could have tried to do something clever with like a little sofa and then trying to stick like a sofa on top of it, but it wouldn't have worked, so I don't really see the point. But yeah, I just found that very, very weird to be literally sitting in your living room / kitchen / dining room and taking a bath, but they liked that part of the design, so there we go. But yeah, I didn't want to include that. And then you did see the bathroom just there. It was really simple. I think in the show they only show it for like a brief second, and they also don't show the bathroom in its sort of entirety. So again, I just kind of imagined how it would look. But yeah, the diagonals again proved to be quite a challenge. I wasn't 100% sure sometimes with diagonal, because I don't really like, in the houses that I actually play in, I don't tend to add diagonal walls, so I'm not really sure how that affects kind of functionality, and whether like that toilet that was adjacent to a diagonal wall, if it's still usable, I'm not quite sure. But I just did the best I could with what I was working in, and you can see it here as well. Like, it's got that weird little triangle point to this room, but I just kind of kept this as, I think it was like designated as a utility room in the floor plan, so I just kept it as like a little room before you go into the back garden, so there's a place to have like your coats and shoes and things like that. So a pretty simple room, but this was really where I struggled, like here, and mainly, to be honest, that section by the front door that you can see here. I cut it out, but basically I was trying so many different rugs there, and they were all floating because of the platforms that were surrounding this room. So yeah, that rug definitely was not my ideal rug to put there, but it was the only one for some reason that didn't float. And then also they would kind of disappear as well when I move the camera around. So that's what I'm talking about when I say that platforms definitely still have a lot of challenges. But yeah, we got there in the end. And now this is actually one of my favorite parts of both the real life house and this build as well, is a little bench seat. So you can see initially I was experimenting with 4 of these. I don't know what they are. They kind of look like a bench seat anyway. I think they're from the kids' room pack. And basically, as soon as I saw the real life house and I knew that I wanted to recreate it, I knew that I was going to do it with this little bench, and it worked really well. So yeah, you can see I did originally put 4 pieces together, but I realized that if you make it bigger, it works perfectly fine. It's obviously not functional as a bench seat, and this is also where I did know that I wanted to use custom content with like cushions, because unfortunately we don't have them in the game, but it's such a little cute part of the house. They put like hanging plants, regular plants and lamps in there. It was so cute, and it looks like just like the coziest place to like sit and read a book or something. I would love something like this in real life. So yeah, again, not functional, but just really cute, and I had a lot of fun at trying to recreate that and getting a little bit creative with what I used. And then this is essentially the end of the build. The kitchen, it's very, very black and industrial. They had these kind of like metal island counters, and we don't have metal ones, but these counters, I really like them, and they do have quite an industrial look, so I thought they would work quite well. And I did try to keep the kitchen really simple, because the whole house is really like sleek and modern, and like I say, completely my style. So really love this one, love how it turned out, and I hope that you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more videos, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!